The Galactic Dominion Council chamber hummed with the low vibrations of 1,000 different species, breathing, chittering, and communicating through various biological mechanisms. At the center of the vast circular room, a holographic display showed a small blue planet rotating slowly in the darkness of space. Commander Zexathul of the Vorthak Empire adjusted his 3 eyes to focus on the strategic briefing. Target designation, SOL-3, locally known as Earth, announced General Kethmore, her serpentine form coiling around the central podium. Population approximately 8 billion sentient beings. Technological classification, level 2.3, military threat assessment, negligible. A ripple of what could only be described as amusement passed through the assembled fleet commanders. Level 2.3 civilizations were barely worth the fuel costs of a proper invasion. They had chemical propulsion, primitive energy weapons, and still used physical projectiles in warfare. The Dominion had conquered 17 such worlds in the past galactic cycle alone. Intelligence reports indicate they have achieved basic space flight but have not yet established permanent off-world colonies, continued the general, her forked tongue flicking out to taste the air. Their longest space missions last mere months. They possess no energy shields, no plasma weaponry, and their fastest vessels require years to travel between planets in their own system. Commander Zexthul raised one of his 4 arms. General, with respect, why are we dedicating Council resources to such a primitive target? My scouts report the entire world could be pacified with a single dreadnought. An excellent question, Kethmore replied, her vertical pupils narrowing. The world contains several rare mineral deposits essential for our quantum drive production. More importantly, the species shows unusual genetic diversity that our research divisions believe could prove valuable for our biological weapon programs. The hologram shifted to show various human settlements across Earth's continents. Cities sprawled across the landscape, connected by primitive transportation networks. Atmospheric scans revealed a civilization that had barely learned to harness their planet's resources efficiently. Current intelligence suggests they are in the midst of what they call their 21st century, Kethmore explained. They have recently developed global communication networks and have begun to show signs of attempting to unify their various tribal governments. Standard protocol suggests we should intervene before they achieve true planetary unity. Fleet Admiral Gorwin of the hegemony shifted his massive bulk, causing the specialized gravity field around his station to fluctuate. What resistance can we expect? Do they possess any orbital defense platforms? None whatsoever, the general replied, with what passed for a smile among her species. They have launched several small observation satellites and a few simple space stations, but nothing capable of military action. Their most advanced weapons are fusion-based explosives with limited range and accuracy. They cannot even reliably hit targets on their own planet from orbit. The assembled commanders nodded in satisfaction. This would be a simple harvest operation. The Dominion had refined these procedures over millennia. They would arrive in overwhelming force, demonstrate their technological superiority, and demand surrender. Most primitive civilizations capitulated within hours when faced with the reality of their situation. Timeline for the operation? Asked Commander Veltar, her crystalline form refracting the chamber's light into prismatic patterns. The Third Fleet will begin deployment in 6 standard cycles, Kethmore announced. Transit time to the Sol system is estimated at 4 cycles using standard hyperdrive corridors. We expect to achieve complete planetary capitulation within 1 local day of arrival. The various species in the chamber began making their preparations to leave when a young communications officer burst through the chamber's energy barrier. The intrusion caused an immediate stir among the assembled military leadership. Breaking council protocol was an offense that could result in immediate execution. "Forgive the interruption," the officer gasped, his translator struggling with his rapid speech. "We have received an unexpected transmission from the target system. It appears to be directed at us specifically. General Kethmore's eyes narrowed to dangerous slits. Impossible. Level 2.3 civilizations lack the technology to detect our scouting vessels, much less transmit across interstellar distances. General, the transmission is confirmed authentic. It originated from the third planet and was broadcast on frequencies our ships use for internal communications. The message appears to be intended for our leadership specifically. A heavy silence fell over the chamber. In 12,000 years of galactic expansion, the Dominion had never encountered a primitive species capable of detecting their presence, much less communicating with them directly. "Play the transmission," Kethmore commanded, her voice carrying a note of uncertainty that hadn't been present moments before. The holographic display flickered and resolved into the image of a human male. He appeared to be middle-aged by their species standards, with graying hair and wearing simple clothing. He sat in what appeared to be a primitive laboratory filled with electronic equipment that looked archaic by Dominion standards. "Greetings to the representatives of the Galactic Dominion Council," the human began, speaking in accented but perfectly understandable galactic standard. "My name is Dr. James Chen, and I represent the people of Earth. We know you're out there, and we know why you're coming." The chamber erupted in shocked exclamations from dozens of different species. Several commanders demanded the transmission be stopped, while others insisted it was some kind of elaborate hoax. "We've been watching your expansion patterns for the past 50 years, Dr. Chen continued calmly. "Your scouting ships aren't as invisible as you think they are. We've been learning your languages, studying your technology, and preparing for this moment." Commander Zex Thul felt his blood temperature drop several degrees. 50 years? Impossible. Their cloaking technology was based on quantum field manipulation that was theoretically undetectable by any civilization below level 7. You see us as a level 2.3 civilization, and by your standards, that assessment is correct. We do use chemical propulsion and physical projectiles. Our space program is indeed primitive, and we have no orbital defense platforms. The human paused, and something that might have been a smile crossed his features. "However, you've made a fundamental error in your evaluation." General Kethmore found herself leaning forward despite herself, drawn in by the human's confident tone. "You've been observing our military technology and our space capabilities, but you haven't been paying attention to what we're really good at. You see, humanity didn't develop advanced physics or exotic matter manipulation. We developed something far more dangerous." The transmission quality flickered momentarily, then stabilized. "We learned how to fight, not just fight each other, though we've certainly done plenty of that. We learned how to fight problems that seem impossible to solve. When faced with extinction, we adapt. When faced with overwhelming odds, we innovate. When faced with certain defeat, we find ways to turn our weaknesses into advantages." Dr. Chen stood up from his chair and moved toward what appeared to be a window. Through the glass, the commanders could see a sprawling human city at night, illuminated by millions of lights. "For the past 50 years, ever since we detected your first scouts, we've been preparing. Not building space fleets to match yours. We knew that was impossible with our resources and time frame. Instead, we've been doing what humans do best. We've been learning how to win a war we can't possibly win." The human turned back toward the camera, and for the first time his expression grew serious. "This transmission is being sent from over 300 locations across our planet simultaneously. It's being broadcasted on every frequency we've observed your ships using. By the time you receive this message, similar transmissions will have been sent to every known Dominion colony, every client species, and every independent system within 50 light-years of our position." The communications officer who had delivered the message began frantically working on his portable interface. "General, I'm detecting massive electromagnetic pulses from the target system. Hundreds of high-powered transmissions on multiple frequencies." The message we're sending to all those worlds is quite simple, Dr. Chen continued. It contains complete technical specifications for detecting your cloaked ships, detailed analysis of your military tactics based on 50 years of observation, and most importantly, proof that a Level 2.3 civilization has been successfully tracking and studying your empire without your knowledge. General Kethmore felt a chill run through her serpentine body as the implications became clear. You see? Your empire is based on technological superiority and the fear it generates. But we're about to prove to every species in this region of the galaxy that your technology isn't as advanced as you want everyone to believe. We're about to show them that if a primitive species like humanity can detect and study you, then any civilization with sufficient determination can do the same. The human moved closer to the camera again. But here's the real message we want to deliver to you personally. If you come to Earth, you will face something your empire has never encountered in 12,000 years of expansion. You will face a species that has spent 50 years preparing specifically to fight you. We know your ship designs, your tactical preferences, your logistical requirements, and your strategic weaknesses. Dr. Chen paused, letting his words sink in. We've had half a century to plan for this war. We know exactly how you fight, because you've been fighting the same way for millennia. You rely on overwhelming technological advantage to force quick surrenders, but we're not going to surrender. We're going to make you pay for every mile of ground, every city, every settlement. We're going to turn our entire planet into a nightmare for your forces. The transmission began to flicker more severely. More importantly, we're going to make sure every species in the galaxy sees exactly how much it costs your empire to conquer a determined Level 2.3 civilization. We're going to show them that your invincibility is an illusion. The image stabilized for a final moment. So come to Earth if you want. Send your third fleet. Send your entire armada if it makes you feel better, but understand that you're not just declaring war on humanity. You're about to discover that there are some battles that can't be won with superior technology alone. The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in absolute silence. For long moments, no one spoke. The implications of what they had just witnessed were staggering. If the humans were telling the truth about broadcasting their intelligence to other species, it could destabilize the entire foundation of Dominion power. Finally, Fleet Admiral Gore Wynn broke the silence. General, I recommend we immediately abort the operation and quarantine the Sol system if word of this intelligence breach spreads to our client species. No, General Kethmore interrupted, her voice carrying a note of fury. We cannot appear weak. If we back down from a Level 2.3 species, it will invite challenges from every corner of the Empire. Commander Zexthul raised one of his arms. General, perhaps we should consider the strategic implications. If they truly have been studying us for 50 years. They're primitive, Kethmore snapped. Regardless of what they claim to know about our tactics, they lack the technology to meaningfully resist our forces. We will proceed with the operation, but we will modify our approach. She turned to address the full council. Instead of the Third Fleet, we will deploy the Second and Fourth Fleets together. We will ensure overwhelming force and rapid conclusion. We cannot allow this challenge to stand. The various commanders began filing out of the chamber, each lost in their own thoughts about what they had just witnessed. None of them noticed the small human probe that had been recording their entire meeting, hidden in the quantum shadow of their own security systems. The probe immediately began transmitting its data back to Earth, where Dr. Chen and his team were already implementing the next phase of their 50-year plan. Admiral Sarah Rodriguez stood in the command center buried 3 kilometers beneath the Colorado mountains, watching as holographic displays showed the Dominion fleets approaching the outer edge of the solar system. The massive chamber hummed with activity as hundreds of technicians monitored screens showing data streams from across the galaxy. Ma'am, we're receiving confirmations from Kepler 442 and Gliese 6N67, reported Lieutenant Commander Park, his voice tight with excitement. Both systems are reporting successful detection of Dominion scout ships using our methods. The Kepler system is already implementing defensive modifications. Sarah nodded grimly. The plan was working exactly as Dr. Chen had predicted 5 years ago, before his death. The old physicist had spent his final years ensuring that humanity's 50-year intelligence-gathering operation would bear fruit even if he wasn't alive to see it. "Status on the Proxima Centauri relay?" she asked. "Online and broadcasting continuously," replied Major Thompson from the communications station. "Every major civilization within 100 light-years now has access to our tactical database on Dominion fleet movements." Through the reinforced windows of the command center, Sarah could see the launch tubes that housed humanity's secret weapon. Not advanced spacecraft or exotic weapons, but something the Dominion had never encountered. Pure, concentrated stubbornness, backed by half a century of careful preparation. "Admiral, the Dominion fleets are beginning their final approach," announced Captain Williams from the tactical station. 2 full battle groups, approximately 800 vessels total. They're maintaining standard formation patterns exactly as predicted. Sarah activated the general communications system. "All stations, this is Admiral Rodriguez. Operation Last Stand is now in effect. Remember, we're not trying to win a space battle. We're trying to show the galaxy what it costs to fight humanity." Across Earth, hidden installations that had been built over decades began powering up. In the Sahara Desert, massive railgun installations emerged from beneath the sand, their barrels designed not to destroy Dominion ships, but to launch specially designed payloads into orbit. In the depths of the Pacific Ocean, submarine-based facilities prepared to release thousands of autonomous drones that had been quietly manufactured for 40 years. "Ma'am, we're receiving a transmission from the Dominion fleet," reported the communications officer. "Put it through," Sarah replied, straightening her uniform. The holographic display resolved into the image of General Kethmore, her serpentine features twisted with barely contained rage. "This is General Kethmore of the Galactic Dominion. You will surrender immediately and prepare for occupation. Any resistance will result in the complete sterilization of your planet." Sarah stepped forward, meeting the alien's gaze directly. "General, this is Admiral Sarah Rodriguez, representing the United Earth Defense Force. We decline your offer." "You decline?" Kethmore's translator struggled with the concept. "You are a level 2.3 species facing the combined might of 2 Dominion battle fleets. Surrender is your only option for survival." "General, let me explain something about humanity that your 50 years of observation might have missed," Sarah replied calmly. "We have a saying, the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good people to do nothing. We've decided to do something." Kethmore's eyes narrowed. "Your primitive weapons cannot even reach our ships in high orbit. What do you expect to accomplish?" Sarah smiled, and something in that expression made the alien general pause. "We're going to teach the galaxy a lesson about the cost of tyranny. Computer, initiate Phase 1. Across Earth's surface, the hidden installations came online simultaneously. But instead of targeting the Dominion ships, they began launching thousands of small objects into space. To the Dominion sensors, they appeared to be simple metal projectiles moving at relatively slow speeds. "What are those?" Kethmore demanded, her voice carrying a note of confusion. "History lessons," Sarah replied. "Each of those projectiles contains detailed records of humanity's resistance movements throughout our history. The Warsaw Ghetto, the French Resistance, the American Revolution. Every time ordinary people chose to fight against impossible odds rather than submit to tyranny. The projectiles spread throughout Earth's orbital space, creating a dense field of debris that would require careful navigation for the Dominion ships to avoid. But more importantly," Sarah continued, Each projectile also contains complete technical specifications for every Dominion ship design we've observed over the past 50 years, including detailed analysis of structural weaknesses and tactical vulnerabilities. On the Dominion flagship, alarms began sounding as sensors detected massive energy buildups across Earth's surface. "Admiral, I'm reading power spikes from over 300 locations," reported Commander Zexthul, his voice strained. "All of those installations are broadcasting the same information simultaneously to every corner of the galaxy," Sarah explained to the increasingly agitated Dominion general. "Right now, every species within 100 light-years is learning exactly how to build weapons that can penetrate your ship armor." Kethmore's serpentine form coiled tighter around her command post. "You're bluffing. Level 2.3 civilizations cannot possess such detailed intelligence." "General, let me share something else about humanity," Sarah said, her expression growing more serious. "We're really good at learning from our enemies. For 50 years, we've been reverse engineering every piece of Dominion technology we could get our hands on. Crashed probe components, energy signatures from your engines, materials analysis from debris your ships left behind." The Admiral gestured to her tactical display. "We know your ships use quantum-locked hull plating that's nearly impervious to energy weapons. We know your shields operate on rotating frequency harmonics that adapt to incoming fire. We know your main guns require 30-second charging cycles between shots." Each revelation caused visible distress among the Dominion bridge crew. "We also know that your quantum-locked plating has a resonance frequency of 847.3 terahertz, and that a sustained bombardment at that frequency will cause catastrophic structural failure," Sarah continued relentlessly. "We know that your adaptive shields can't adjust to more than 12 different frequency changes per second, and we know that during those 30-second charging cycles, your main deflector arrays are vulnerable to penetration by high-velocity kinetic projectiles." General Kethmore's breathing became rapid and shallow. "Impossible. That information is classified at the highest levels of Dominion command." "General, you've been giving us live demonstrations for 50 years. Every time you conquered a world, we were watching. Every time you tested a new weapon system, we were taking notes. Every time you thought you were invisible, we were learning how to see you." Sarah activated another display showing a complex mathematical formula. "This equation describes the exact power output required to disrupt your hyperdrive systems. We've shared this information with 47 different species who now have the industrial capacity to build weapons based on these specifications." The Dominion fleet began to shift formation, moving into defensive positions as the implications became clear. "But here's the really interesting part," Sarah continued. "We haven't actually built any of these weapons ourselves. We don't have the industrial capacity or the time to manufacture the kind of arsenal needed to fight your fleets directly." Kethmore paused in her agitated movements. "Then this is all an elaborate bluff." "No, General. This is something much more dangerous than a bluff. This is a demonstration." Sarah nodded to her communications officer, who began broadcasting on all frequencies. "Every species in this region of the galaxy is now watching this engagement. They're seeing a level 2.3 civilization that has been preparing for 50 years to face the Galactic Dominion. They're seeing that your empire's information security is so poor that primitive humans could study you for half a century without detection." The Admiral's expression grew cold. "More importantly, they're about to see what happens when you try to conquer a species that refuses to give up." Across Earth's surface, the real defenses began to activate. Not advanced weapons, but something far more dangerous to an empire based on quick conquests: preparation. Every major city had been quietly evacuated to underground complexes built over decades. Every piece of critical infrastructure had been hardened against orbital bombardment. Every citizen had been trained in resistance tactics and equipped with supplies for extended underground survival. "You see, General, we did learn something from your previous conquests. You rely on breaking a species' will to resist by demonstrating overwhelming force. You target population centers and infrastructure to force quick surrenders. The first Dominion ships entered Earth's atmosphere, their weapons beginning to target the planet's major cities. But what happens when your targets are empty? What happens when destroying our cities doesn't break our will because we're not in them? What happens when every structure you destroy has been booby-trapped with explosives and broadcasting equipment? The Dominion bombardment began, focusing on New York, London, Tokyo, and other major population centers. The cities exploded in massive fireballs visible from orbit, but instead of screams of surrender, the destruction triggered thousands of automated transmitters. Each explosion broadcasted detailed tactical analysis of the Dominion attack patterns to receivers across the galaxy. The destruction of Earth's cities became a real-time training manual for anyone wanting to learn Dominion military doctrine. "You're insane," Kethmore breathed, watching the feeds from the planet's surface. "No, General, we're dedicated. There's a difference." The bombardment continued for hours, but no surrender came. Instead, each destroyed target revealed new layers of preparation. Hidden bunkers began emerging from underground, launching swarms of small craft that couldn't hope to damage Dominion ships, but could observe and record everything they did. "General, our bombing runs are having no effect on their resistance," reported one of Kethmore's subordinates. "Their population centers appear to have been evacuated years ago." "Then target their military installations," Kethmore ordered. "Ma'am, we can't locate any conventional military installations. Our sensors show the entire planet is honeycombed with underground facilities, but we can't determine which ones are military targets." Sarah's voice came over the communication channel again. "That's because there are no conventional military targets, General. Our entire planet is now a military installation. Every citizen is a soldier. Every building is a fortified position. Every piece of infrastructure is designed to make your occupation as costly as possible." The Admiral gestured to her displays showing the orbital space around Earth. "And every minute you spend in our system, you're being studied by observers from dozens of other species. They're learning that the mighty Galactic Dominion can be held off by a species that hasn't even achieved fusion power." Kethmore realized with growing horror that regardless of whether they won this battle, they had already lost something far more valuable, the fear that kept their empire together. "General, I'm detecting massive hyperspace signatures throughout the system," reported Commander Zexathul. "Multiple fleets are jumping in at the edge of sensor range." On Earth, Sarah smiled as her own sensors detected the approaching ships. "Right on schedule," she murmured to herself. "General Kethmore," she announced over the communication channel. "I believe you're about to meet some of our new friends. It turns out that 50 years of sharing intelligence about Dominion weaknesses makes for very effective diplomacy." The space around Earth erupted into chaos as 17 different fleets materialized from hyperspace jumps. General Kethmore watched in growing disbelief as her tactical displays identified ships from the Andromedian Free States, the Centauri Liberation Front, the Vegan Trade Confederation, and over a dozen other species that the Dominion had considered firmly under their control. "Impossible," she whispered, her serpentine form coiling tightly around her command post. "The Andromedians signed a non-aggression pact only 2 cycles ago. The Centaurians have been our clients for over 3 centuries. Admiral Sarah Rodriguez stood in her underground command center, watching as humanity's greatest gamble paid off in spectacular fashion. For 50 years, Earth hadn't just been studying the Dominion's military tactics. They had been quietly establishing communication with every species the Dominion had conquered, oppressed, or intimidated. "Admiral, the lead Andromedian vessel is requesting communication," reported Lieutenant Commander Park. Sarah nodded. "Put them through." The holographic display resolved into the image of Ambassador Thelvar, her crystalline features reflecting the bridge lights behind her. "Admiral Rodriguez, the Andromedian Free States are honored to finally meet humanity in person. Your intelligence packages have been most illuminating. The honor is ours, Ambassador. How many of your people were able to implement the detection protocols? All 17 of our core systems now have early warning networks based on your specifications. For the first time in 3 centuries, Dominion scout ships cannot approach our worlds undetected. General Kethmore found her voice. Ambassador Thelvar, you are in violation of Treaty 7749 Delta. Your presence in this system constitutes an act of aggression against the Dominion. The Andromedian's crystalline laugh was like wind chimes in a storm. General, I'm afraid your treaties are no longer worth the quantum storage they're recorded on. You see, humanity has shown us something remarkable. Your empire's primary weapon has never been your advanced technology. It's been information asymmetry. Another voice joined the communication channel as Captain Morden of the Centauri Liberation Front added his perspective. For 12,000 years, your empire has maintained control by ensuring that subject species never learned how vulnerable you really are. The humans changed that equation. Sarah watched as more ships continued to arrive in the outer system. The final count showed over 4,000 vessels representing 32 different species, many of whom had been considered loyal Dominion clients just days before. You see, General, Sarah explained, while you were planning to conquer Earth, we were busy showing the galaxy what you really are. Not an unstoppable force of technological superiority, but a collection of bullies who've been picking on civilizations that didn't know how to fight back. Commander Zex Thul's voice was strained as he reported to his general. Ma'am, I'm reading massive energy buildups from the Allied fleets. They appear to be charging weapon systems based on previously unknown designs. Unknown to you, perhaps, interjected Engineer Velkara of the Vegan Trade Confederation. But humanity provided us with detailed specifications for weapons specifically designed to counter Dominion defenses. We've had 6 months to prepare since receiving their data packages. Sarah pulled up a display showing the tactical situation. General, let me explain what's happening here. For 50 years, we've been building the largest intelligence network in galactic history. Every species you've conquered, intimidated, or forced into submission has been receiving detailed information about your capabilities and weaknesses. The Admiral gestured to her fleet displays. The Andromedians have been building quantum resonance cannons tuned to disrupt your hull plating. The Centaurians have developed frequency-agile energy weapons that can overwhelm your adaptive shields. The Vegans have created kinetic impactors designed to exploit the 30-second vulnerability window in your main weapon systems. General Kethmore realized with growing horror that her 2 battle fleets were facing an alliance that had been specifically equipped to counter every advantage the Dominion possessed. But here's the beautiful part, Sarah continued, her expression growing more intense. We didn't just give them the technical specifications. We gave them something much more valuable. We gave them hope. She activated another display showing communication logs spanning decades. For 50 years, every species in this region has been secretly coordinating their resistance efforts. They've been sharing resources, technology, and intelligence. They've been waiting for the right moment to act. Ambassador Thelvar's voice carried a note of satisfaction. That moment came when humanity proved that a level 2.3 civilization could successfully resist Dominion aggression. If humans could do it, we realized that our combined forces certainly could. The space around Earth began to reorganize as the Allied fleets moved into coordinated attack formations. These weren't random groups of ships fighting independently. This was a carefully planned military operation that had been in development for decades. General Kethmore, announced Captain Morden, on behalf of the Galactic Liberation Alliance, I'm ordering you to surrender your fleets immediately. Your vessels will be impounded, and your crews will be repatriated to Dominion space with a message for your leadership. We do not surrender to inferior species, Kethmore snarled, her serpentine form writhing with rage. Inferior? Sarah's voice cut through the channel like ice. General, let me tell you what's really inferior. Inferior is an empire that needs 12,000 years of technological advantage to maintain control. Inferior is a military that's never learned how to adapt because they've never faced real opposition. Inferior is a leadership that's so arrogant they never noticed they were being studied for 50 years. The first engagement began as Dominion ships opened fire on the nearest Allied vessels. But instead of the quick victory they expected, their weapons encountered shields and armor specifically designed to counter their attack patterns. The Andromedian quantum resonance cannons fired next, their beams tuned to the exact frequency needed to disrupt Dominion hull plating. Ship after ship found their supposedly impenetrable armor simply dissolving under the precisely calibrated assault. "Impossible," Commander Zexthul reported. "Our quantum-locked plating is failing across the fleet." "Not impossible," corrected Engineer Velcara. "Just physics. Humanity provided us with 50 years of observational data on your hull composition. Finding the resonance frequency was simply a matter of proper analysis. The Centaurian ships opened fire with their frequency-agile weapons, cycling through 12 different energy patterns per second. The Dominion's adaptive shields, which had been designed to counter conventional weapons that maintained steady frequencies, simply couldn't keep up with the rapid changes. "Shields failing on decks 7 through 12, reported a Dominion officer. "Impossible. Our shields can adapt to any energy frequency." "They can adapt to any single frequency," corrected Captain Morden, "but apparently not to weapons that change frequency faster than your systems can compensate." The battle became a demonstration of everything that was wrong with the Dominion's approach to warfare. Their tactics hadn't evolved in millennia because they'd never needed to evolve. They had relied on overwhelming technological superiority for so long that they had forgotten how to actually fight. Meanwhile, the Allied forces were implementing combat doctrines specifically developed to exploit Dominion weaknesses. Every maneuver, every weapon system, every tactical decision had been designed by species who had spent decades studying how to defeat their oppressors. "General," Sarah's voice came over the communication channel again, "your fleet is being systematically dismantled by species you considered primitive. How does that feel?" Kethamore watched as another of her dreadnoughts succumbed to concentrated fire from vegan kinetic impactors. The massive ship, which should have been able to withstand anything a Level 4 civilization could throw at it, was breaking apart under an assault that targeted the exact structural weaknesses that 50 years of human observation had identified. "This is not how warfare is conducted," she protested. "There are protocols, rules of engagement." "Whose rules?" asked Ambassador Thelvar. "The rules your empire wrote to ensure you always had the advantage. The protocols that guaranteed you could never be challenged fairly?" Sarah's image appeared on the main display, her expression deadly serious. "General, let me explain something about humanity that your intelligence files apparently missed. We don't believe in fighting fair. We believe in fighting smart." The Admiral gestured to the tactical displays showing the systematic destruction of the Dominion fleet. "For 12,000 years, your empire has maintained control by ensuring that no one could challenge you on equal terms. You made sure your enemies never had access to your technology, your tactics, or your intelligence. But what happens when someone changes those rules? What happens when someone spends 50 years making sure that your enemies have access to everything they need to fight you effectively?" The answer was playing out in real time around Earth's orbital space. The Dominion fleets, which had arrived expecting to face a primitive civilization with no real defenses, were being systematically destroyed by an alliance that knew exactly how to counter every advantage they possessed. "General Kethmore," announced Admiral Tivash of the combined Allied fleet, "your position is hopeless. Surrender now, and your crews will be treated according to civilized standards of warfare." Kethmore looked around her bridge at the faces of her officers. For the first time in their careers, they were seeing the Dominion lose a battle. Not just lose, but be completely outmaneuvered by species they had been taught to consider inferior. "What assurance do I have that my crews will be treated well?" she asked, her voice defeated. Sarah stepped forward again. "General, let me tell you about another thing humans are good at. We're good at mercy. When this battle is over, your crews will be returned to Dominion space unharmed. Your ships will be impounded, but your people will go home." "Why?" Kethmore asked, genuinely confused. "We came here to conquer your world." "Because that's what separates us from your empire," Sarah replied. "We fight to protect ourselves and others. You fight to dominate and control. When we win, we can afford to be generous because we're not afraid of our former enemies." The general looked at the tactical displays showing the remains of her once mighty fleets. "What happens now?" "Now," said Admiral Tavash, "you carry a message back to your leadership. Tell them that the galaxy has changed. Tell them that the age of Dominion expansion is over. Tell them that there's a new alliance in this region of space, and we're not going to tolerate their empire's behavior anymore." Sarah nodded in agreement. "And tell them that it all started because one primitive level 2.3 civilization refused to surrender without a fight." General Kethmore formally surrendered her remaining forces 30 minutes later. As promised, the crews were treated well and eventually repatriated to Dominion space. The ships themselves were distributed among the allied species, their technology reverse-engineered and shared freely throughout the alliance. 6 months later, Sarah stood in the same underground command center, now serving as the headquarters for the Galactic Liberation Alliance. Reports were coming in from across known space as more and more worlds declared their independence from the Dominion. "Admiral, the Rigel system has officially joined the Alliance," reported Lieutenant Commander Park. "That brings our total membership to 94 species across 47 star systems." Sarah smiled, remembering Dr. Chen's words from years before. The old physicist had been right. Humanity's greatest weapon had never been advanced technology. It had been their refusal to give up, combined with their talent for turning impossible odds into opportunities. The transmission that had started it all, that single message broadcast to the galaxy, had done exactly what Dr. Chen had intended. It had shown every oppressed species in the region that the Dominion could be defeated. More importantly, it had shown them how. As Sarah looked out at the stars through the command center's viewports, she reflected on how much the galaxy had changed. The Dominion still existed, but their expansion had stopped. They now faced a growing alliance of free worlds that possessed all the intelligence they needed to maintain their independence. And it had all started with one simple truth. Sometimes the most powerful force in the universe isn't advanced technology or superior firepower. Sometimes it's just the refusal to give up. Combined with 50 years of very careful planning, the galaxy would never be the same.